Hi everyone, this is a review of Lesson 7, and this week we continue to look at the new note E. So let me just do a little bit of a review before we jump into the new material for this week. Last week we learned the note E, and the note E is created by putting a finger down on the string. We talked about how as you place fingers down on open strings, it shortens the length of the string and changes the pitch that the string plays. So to play the note E, you take your index finger, your first finger on your left hand, and place it on the D string, and that is going to make the D string play the note E. But you can't just put your finger in any spot. There's a specific spot that it needs to go to make the note E. So you all have 3 stickers on your instrument. You're going to put your index finger, your first finger, on the first sticker. The first sticker is going to be the one that's closest to the top of your instrument, to the scroll, so it'll be somewhere around here. So you're going to put your index finger on the D string on the first sticker, and that will create the note E. If you're a violin or bass, don't confuse that with your open string E. This is a different E, and that's why a lot of times we will call it E on the D string. We also talked about the perseverance that it takes to put fingers down on the string. At first, it probably is a little bit uncomfortable, and I saw lots of students this week who had practiced and seemed to be able to play the note E with no problem at all. So the more you practice, the easier this will get, and I'm really impressed with some of the things I saw this week. We talked about when you're not playing the note E, that you need to hover your index finger over the spot where it goes. This was another area where I was very impressed as I went through lessons this week. I saw a lot of students who set their index finger down for E. That's the first note of Sword of the Samurai, the piece that we played last week. And then as they went through, they would lift their first finger up when it was time to play D. And then since they hovered it, all they had to do was keep lifting it up and putting it back down. And they never had to look at their hand again. They knew that they were in the right spot because they were hovering. I was really impressed by that. So keep up the good work if you've been doing that. And that's a great strategy if you're still struggling with keeping that finger in the correct spot. Now, part of your homework this week, I'm going to ask you to continue doing Sword of the Samurai. You can do our say it, pluck it, play it method. I'm guessing most of you don't need to do say it anymore for that one because it's just 2 notes and you all did a great job saying it in lessons. But it would be helpful to do it pizzicato, plucking, right, practicing that note E. And then the part where I still see a lot of students struggling is with the bow. Spend some time playing Sword of the Samurai with your bow. This is a great one to practice bowing because it just stays on the D string the whole time. So in Sword of the Samurai, you have open D and the note E on the D string. So every note is on the D string. Your bow stays in that spot, but you can practice doing nice, big, full bows as you play. So continue to work on Sword of the Samurai, but right now we are going to look at Winter Daydreams. That was your new piece for this week that you'll do in addition to Sword of the Samurai. So go ahead and take that out. We're going to look at this together right now. This is 2 lines of music. The notes are colored. Remember, they will not always be colored, but it is kind of helpful for us at the moment to have those. As you look through this, you might see that there are 3 beats in every measure, not 4. So as we count, there will be just 3 quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you should be able to pretty easily see a pattern as you go through this piece. You play on beat 1, and then beats 2 and 3, you rest. Play, rest, play, rest. When we go through in a minute and say our notes, I won't make you say the rest. We'll just say the notes that we play, or else you'll get out of breath saying all those notes and rests. Let's go through really quick and just talk about which notes are which, because there are some notes in here we have not played in a while. We've played them before, but we just haven't played them in a while. So start at measure 5 where you come in. Remember, we have 4 measures of rest, and I will put in the Google Classroom a link to the play along to this. Most of us got a chance to do it in class. Super fun to play with the play along when we can. So in measure 5, we have the note A. This is your open A string. Measures 5 and 6, those are 2 open A's. Something we haven't done in a couple of weeks, so make sure you remind yourself of that note. After measures 5 and 6, we have 2 E's. Measures 7 and 8, E, E. Then 2 open D's. That should be easy to read because we read a lot of open D's last week. D, D. And then the one that might throw some students off is in measure 11 and 12. That is open G. open G. So you might have to think back to that first week when we learned all of our open strings. Make sure you know what those open strings are. D, A, and G are the ones that we are using this week. And then, of course, we're adding in our new note, E. So let's go through say it, pluck it, play it together right now. I'll start at measure 5. I'm just going to say the notes, and I'll just be quiet. I'll actually really rest during the rest. So here's measure 5. 1, 2, 3. Ready, here we go. A, E, E, D, D, here's measure 11, G, G, next line, D, D, A, measure 17, D, D, E, A, G, E. Great. So if that was easy for you, you're ready to move on to the next step. If you are struggling with this, pause the video and practice it again, or you can even rewind and do it with me again. It doesn't make sense to move on from the first step, say it, until you really can say it perfectly, because I can't expect you, or I would not expect you to play it correctly if you can't read the notes. So pause, go back, practice reading these until you have it perfect. But I am going to move on to pizzicato plucking this melody, okay? So I have my instrument up. Before we do this, let's just make sure we know where our strings are. So make your pizzicato L and put it up against your fingerboard. I want everyone to put your index finger on the note A. Think about it for your instrument. Where is the note A? Violins, it's 2 strings in, right? Cello and viola, it's your highest string, and bass, A is not your lowest string, but your second lowest string. So there's A, okay? Now find the note D, the note G, and the note E on the D string. So find D and put your first finger down, okay? Before I play this, even though my first note is not E, I'm going to hover my first finger over where E is supposed to be, because my third note is E, and all I have to do then is plunk my first finger down on the D string. So I'm starting on the note A. Here's measure 5. 1, 2, 3. Ready, here we go. Now E, and D, and G. Second line, D, 17, all right. So again, you can really see that this is more challenging than Sword of the Samurai. There's lots of notes, you're switching strings, you really have to be on the ball. But I know you can do it. I'm giving you something challenging, more challenging than last week, because you're ready to challenge yourself even more, right? Every week we do something that gets progressively harder, and then eventually you will be so amazed at the things you can do. If you're struggling with doing it pizzicato, this is a good time to pause the video and practice doing it pizzicato. But I'm going to move on to the third step, play it with the bow. So I'm going to grab my bow. If some of you, for anyone who's watching and says, man, that's a really short bow, my bow broke and I don't have any more full-size violin bows here at school, so I'm using a really, really tiny half-size bow, so that's why it looks kind of goofy if you're noticing that. But it'll still get the job done for what we need to do here. I'm looking through this and I see all the times that I'm switching strings, and that's what's going to be the challenge with the bow. We practiced when we first started using the bow doing rainbows, right? Changing the angle of our arm so that we're touching each string with the bow hair. For violins and violas, it's the elbow going up, right? Cello and bass, it's a little bit different, elbow coming out, and always staying in that sweet spot. And so that's the challenge here, and it might take a little while. It might take the whole week and some extra grit to get this, but I know you can do it. So let's take our bow, set it on the A string, and we want to use pretty decent sized bows, maybe like this. You want to avoid something like this. using teeny tiny bows like that, I know it maybe feels comfortable for you. You don't want to use lots of bow, but when you use teeny tiny bows, it doesn't sound very good. The tone quality is bad. It actually sounds really crunchy, and it's really, really quiet, right? We want to be able to hear you and have a nice full tone. And of course, when I get to the rest, I stop my bow, and my bow just stays on the string, stop right there. Okay? So here's measure 5. I'm going to do all of Winter Daydream. Try to play it with me at home if you're feeling comfortable with the bow. So 1, 2, 3, ready, here we go. Awesome. You may have noticed that during those rests, I used my time wisely. I used my time to change the angle of my bow. And they did this on purpose. They know this is a really tough thing to keep changing strings with your bow. But you have 2 beats of rest in between each note. Rest, rest. Don't wait until the end to move it. Do it during the rest. Rest, rest. Eventually you won't have that type of time, but they're giving you a chance here to practice that. And so, again, use your rest wisely, okay? And that is it for Winter Daydreams. Remember, this week you're doing Sword of the Samurai and Winter Daydreams. And one thing I really want to encourage you to do is, even if you're struggling with the bow, you do need to practice with it. It's not going to get better if you're avoiding it. I know some of you are having a hard time, and it seems like maybe you're just not practicing with the bow at home because you're doing everything perfect before that. You're reading all your notes properly, you're doing the pizzicato really well, but the minute we add the bow, we're really, really struggling. So if you need to, you can go back and watch the bow video, the first, I think it's lesson 4, but practice with that bow. It's only going to get better if you put time into it. Okay, and we'll keep working on it in class too. So everyone have a great week, and I will see you in our next lesson.